Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hey, everybody.
Just so you all know, I'm gonna mute you all really quickly. It's not because I don't want to hear you. I just want to make sure you can hear all of us.
Yeah.
Turn it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
For picture, there we go.
There's 16 people.
All right, and then ask to unmute. And Tom, where are you? Okay. Welcome, everyone. Looks like we have about 16 people in. I'm gonna keep an eye on the waiting room and admit anyone who comes in, but it is 3:30 where we are here in California. So we are going to get started. And I just wanna thank you all for being with us. This is our third Zoom tasting. We have had so much fun the past two, and it's just really nice to see everyone virtually. I think we can all use a drink, and we have three amazing wines that we're going to be talking through, and we're really excited to be here with all of you. Like I said, you know, wine is all about bringing people together, and we are all about that as well. And for those of you joining us for the first time, we are going to jump into the wine drinking portion of this, but I do want to make sure that you know who we are and what we're talking about. So I'm going to just briefly introduce myself. My name is Megan Cline. I'm part of the second generation here at Jacuzzi Family Vineyards. And I do a little bit of everything here with my family. So I sometimes work in the vineyard and in the cellar with our winemaker, Tom Gendall, and my dog is sneezing in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. But I also work in hospitality. I work in marketing. No 2 days are ever the same for me. And I think that's kind of the beauty of being in the wine industry and also working with a family run company, because you're kind of asked to do a lot, but it's always really, really fun. And I am also here with our amazing winemaker of the past 2 years, Mr. Tom Gendall.
Hey, everybody.
And Tom, I would love to hear a little bit about your background and your journey in the wine industry.
Sure, yeah. So my journey in the wine industry started when I was 17, actually. I started basically at high school. They did a little wine tasting course, and I was drinking wine in high school. I was like, that sounds like fun, and got myself into that. And yeah, just really enjoyed it, and got into the wine industry. I did a 3-year degree in New Zealand, which is where I'm from. Did some viticulture work and some winemaking work at a variety of places there, and a little bit in Europe as well. Spent 6 months over there in the Vineyard Winery too, before I moved to California in 2011. Worked in Napa and Sonoma and a bunch of places, and yeah, I started working with Fred and Megan in 2016. It's gone really quickly. Beginning of 2016, I started, and helping out. Charlie was the winemaker here at Jacuzzi at the time, and we had a great time making all the wines. And about halfway through 2019, Fred came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, do you want to take over the reins at Jacuzzi? And I jumped at the opportunity, and been crafting these wines since, and having a lot of fun. I've got experience in a plethora of different varieties, but definitely Jacuzzi is a fascinating and interesting new challenge with all the different varieties that we make. And had a lot of fun working with Megan and Hillary, kind of crafting the new vision for these Jacuzzi wines and these kind of new styles and these new ways we want to show off our beautiful grapes that we grow here in Sonoma and the other grapes that we find around California too.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And for those of you who don't know, Hillary is my sister. She's also involved in the family business. So she works a lot with production and also with just guiding the style of the winemaking and the grape growing. And we're also here with a very special guest, my dad, Mr. Fred Cline. Dad, wave.
Everyone, it's very nice to be with everyone. Thank you so much for your time to join us. It's always an honor to talk to people about our wine and our story. So thank you again for coming to this.
Yeah,
and by the way, this is the first time I've ever done a Zoom one of these things. So yeah, if I don't get it right,
I had to convince him. So we're really, really excited that he is able to join us. And I thought this was a really good opportunity for him to talk a little bit about the history of Jacuzzi. I know a lot of you have interacted with the winery before. You've either been here or had the wines, but Dad, you have such a great story. I mean, I think the Jacuzzi story is so amazing, and I would love to, hear your version of it. We all talk about it kind of secondhand, and it's your story. So I would love to have you go through it, and I'll put up some fun visuals. If you were here last time, I put something up similar, but I will share kind of my screen. And Dad, I would love to hear your story.
Okay, well, the story started with being born into the Jacuzzi family, as my mother was one of the Jacuzzi family members, and her, if you look at the picture on the screen to the far right, my grandfather was just below the young lady, his sister above him on the left-hand side. That was my grandfather, Valeriano Jacuzzi, and he came to the United States in 1907, the first of the family to come to the United States from Italy. They're up from northern Italy, and when he came, he was a farm worker and also worked in the railroads, in the mines, and building railroad tunnels. But when he finally was able to come back, because he went back to get the rest of the family, and when he went back there, he got conscripted into World War I and had to fight for Italy. And when he was finally able to come back, he brought his parents and the few that had not gone in the meantime. And when he came back, he bought a piece of property out in Contra Costa County in a little town called Oakley, and he raised his 7 kids. He was one of 11, if you count them in there, and he had 8 children, one of them being my mother, and then my mother had 9 children. I'm one of the 9, and of course Megan's one of 7 that my wife and I have. So I think wine, you got to be careful with wine. It could cause certain things, but anyway. So as I was growing up, I used to go visit my grandparents up in this Oakley town, and this piece of property he turned into a farm that he was able to feed his family with. And along that, he had some vineyards in there that he planted and took care of. And he always told me the story about him and his wife, Giuseppina and Valeriano, would go out in the middle of the night to sulfur dust so they wouldn't get powdery mildew. So, and they would fall asleep back to back out in the field because they just were so tired they couldn't even go anymore. And but he also made wine, and that's how I really got introduced to wine making and wine tasting. I won't go into the wine drinking part because that's censored right now. But anyway, he showed me how to do it. As I got older, I moved up there and lived with him and my grandmother and worked the summers, and it was just fantastic. I really liked it, but I never thought I'd go into the wine business. I just thought I would be making wine for family use, continuing, because my grandfather made it and gave it to all of his rest of the family members in that area. This area was Northern California Bay Area. And then I went to Davis because I wanted to be a farmer, UC Davis, but at the same time, I would bring some of the wine that I made to our school, and people liked it and wanted to buy it, and you couldn't do it unless you were a winery. So I graduated, ended up going back to Oakley, and just accidentally ran into an old winery, real winery, big winery, commercial one. And I thought, what the heck, maybe I can turn this into a bigger version of what my grandfather was doing. And I ended up doing that and started out there. And one thing led to another, and got married to my wife, Nancy, and we moved into, she was the one working and making money. I was trying to make money, but mostly spending it. And, but she had one child, then she got pregnant with the second one, said, I'm not commuting anymore. You're gonna have to move. And so we moved up to Sonoma, which was near where she was working. And we were able to find a perfect property to develop. At that time, we were calling it Cline Cellars only. But always in the back of my head, I wanted to honor my grandfather and his family, and just for their unique family and what they also brought to the world. And that was starting with this thing that you see now, that's on the screen. Those propellers were one of their first products that they made when they came to the United States and worked as a family. And then they got into making airplanes, and they got into making windmills, and they got into making compressor like that one you see there. But really what got them into a real giant growth was making pumps, because they were able to develop an injector pump that just was able to revolutionize the way water was being pumped. And that really got them all over the United States and even the world. Then their name got famous by making these, the hydro massage, something that you would put in a bathtub, or now you guys know them as either a jacuzzi or a hot tub or a spa. But they were the ones that invented that, and their name was all over it. And so eventually, so by the time I was 21 or 22, the family sold the company. And when they sold it, I got $9,000, and I thought I was wealthy, and I really wasn't wealthy, but I thought I was. So I really used it in trying to start that winery. But so I always wanted to pay something back, and what I wanted to pay back was the heritage of my grandfather and his family. And so we started, when we moved to Sonoma, we started thinking about what kind of grapes to grow there. And we tried, as we were doing in Contra Costa County, we had these old Zinfandels, but we also had Syrah, Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne, and Mourvedre. In Oakley, it was known as Mataro. And then we moved to Sonoma. I said, some of these Italian varietals are going to should do very well in Sonoma. So we started planting them. And this wine that is in the picture right here, this is a 2005. We call it Valeriano because it's really like a super Tuscan or we call it the super Sonoman, but it's a blend of a lot of the Cabernet Franc, Malbec, and has done very well.
Dad, sorry, really quick, Dad, I don't think we can, oh, now I can see you. I don't know if anyone else was not able to see you, but I could not see you that entire time, and now I can. Sorry.
Well, I was looking at that page you put up, Meg. Anyway, so finally, we were doing pretty well with Cline, so we thought we would to actually build its own jacuzzi, its own winery. And so we did that. And when we did it, it just so happened that it coincided in 2007, we were able to open this winery, and we had a family reunion. There was over 800 family members from those first 11. So I'm very happy to share this with you. And I know at some point you guys are going to be trying some of these jacuzzi wines. So again, thank you again very much for joining.
Thank you, Dad. I do think that really gives a good insight into what we try to accomplish with Jacuzzi, which is very much, paying homage to my dad's Italian heritage, to my great-grandfather Valeriano, and what he was able to teach my dad. And it really does show up in everything that we do, everything from our winemaking style, where we're really honoring that old school traditional winemaking style, from that to the building that we're actually in here at Jacuzzi. Because Dad, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this entire our entire tasting room is modeled after the jacuzzi home, the original jacuzzi home in Italy.
It's very close, Megan, and especially if you go out to the front of it and look at the building, you'll see it. Look, there's different types of rocks used for different parts of that building, and that was because when my great-grandparents built their house, it was always it wasn't all at one time. It was in different phases because as their family grew, they added on.
Yeah. No, I think it's super interesting. It's like every little detail we really try and bring that Italian heritage in. So I think it's
Hey,
really
Megan,
done. Yeah.
if I could interrupt one thing, if any of you folks that are viewing right now would like, I have the Jacuzzi history in a book that my uncle did, and it's if you're interested in it, I'd be happy to send it to anyone that would request it. And if you have get their addresses, Megan, I'll be happy to do that.
Absolutely. I will put my email in the chat for everyone. So send me an email and I will just requesting the book and we'll send it to you and make sure you get some of that. It's such a truly amazing story because not only, like my dad was saying, not only are they famous for the jacuzzi, your modern day hot tub and all of that stuff, but they had so many inventions and got into aviation, agriculture. It's such a cool story. So yeah, everyone send me an email. We'd be happy to pass that on. Okay.
Megan, make sure if they want it in Italian, say Italian, because we have it in Italian as well.
We also have it in Italian. So if you want it in Italian, let me know. Okay, with that, I really think that gives like a really good overview of what we're all about. But I know we're here to drink wine. So I hope you all have been kind of sipping along as we talked a little bit about the history. But Tom, I would love to have you give kind of an overview of the 3 wines we're going to be trying and then maybe jump into the first one.
Yeah, sure. So the 3 wines we're trying today is the Sparkling Brut Rosé. It's a blend of Italian varietals made in a method traditional way. It includes Nebbiolo, Barbera, and Sangiovese. Very bright, fresh acidity, good creaminess on the palate, great fruit character. And then we move into the Nero D'Avola. That is a Sicilian-based wine. We grow it out in Tracy Hills with a grower we've been working with for a number of years. Lighter kind of style of wine, 12.5% alcohol, beautiful, nice, fresh fruits. I get a little bit of cola. I was just tasting it before as well. Really, really interesting wine. And then we also, the last one we have is Cabernet Sauvignon. So a bigger, bolder, richer, rounder style wine. We grow it ourselves out in Contra Costa with our man out in Contra Costa, Alan Lucchese, who's fantastic. This Cabernet is nice and ripe, rich, round tannins, really easy drinking. And unfortunately, it's our last Cabernet Sauvignon we're going to make. So yeah. Which is kind of sad, so grab it while you can. But I'll talk about this Sparkling Brut Rosé. 2018 was the first vintage that we made. Basically, we felt like we wanted to make our own sparkling wine in Jacuzzi. And we kind of looked around and we really liked the idea of doing an Italian-based blend. And we wanted it to be nice and juicy acidity. We had some grapes in Carneros, so about 65% of this comes from Carneros. The majority of the Nebbiolo in this and the Barbera. The Barbera gives it that beautiful color, that nice kind of pink watermelon color. And then we get a little bit of more Nebbiolo from over in the Petaluma Gap at our Catapult Ranch, and also a little bit of Sangiovese comes from there too. We pick this and we make this basically using Italian varieties, but in the French way, the Method Champenois way. We pick it about 20 bricks. We pick it a little bit riper than Champagne's picked, but that's because the acidity is so much brighter. We've got so much more acidity in these Italian varietals. I think the TA on this wine's around about 11 grams per liter, which is really, really high.
So wait, Tom, really quick, what does it mean when you say that TA is 10 or 11? Like, what does that do to the wine when you're tasting it?
So TA is titratable acidity, which is measured as like a tartaric acid. Basically, the higher the TA, the more sour and the more acidic the wine is. The lower the TA, like normal table wines are around about 6 TA, 5 to 7 TA. Sparkling wines are normally in the range of around about 9 to 10 TA, and this wine is more up at 11. So you're getting a lot more kind of juicy, acidic wine. Really rich, really richness though comes from the Champenois style we make it in. Basically, I'm just trying to say that it's really crisp and very, very bright with mouth-watering acidity. Yeah, so we pick all these grapes together, go straight in the press, and we press it straight away. And so you get that really nice kind of really bright pink. Love the color of this wine. I just think this color is awesome. And yeah, it goes straight into tank. We ferment it. I don't think we inoculate this wine just with a kind of a simple strain of yeast. It goes dry within like 2 weeks or so. We keep it fairly cool in the fermentation. And then we put it into the bottle where it goes through a secondary fermentation, which is the classic champagne style. After the secondary fermentation, it's left in bottle for about a year. That's where it kind of gets that kind of bready, yeasty, rich character in the palate. You're trying to freshen that palate out and make it broader and just make it more palatable. About a year in bottle, it goes through riddling and disgorging and dosage, 3 technical terms. Basically, they get rid of the yeast inside the bottle and then put a little dose of wine on the top of it to finish it up, and then they cork it, and then we start drinking it. It's one of my favorite wines. We drink a lot of this. Drink a lot of this during the summer, and we drink a lot of this during the holiday seasons too. Sparkling wine always goes really great with the holiday seasons, and it's got wonderful, like the nose jumps out of the glass for me. I get a lot of kind of crunchy red fruits, we've been calling them, like cranberry, strawberry, watermelon, little pomegranate in there too. Really fresh, vibrant fruit flavors. On the palate, as I said, it's got beautiful crisp acidity, but also a nice little bit of richness as well.
Absolutely. No, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with the descriptors, especially, that red fruit character, so much watermelon in the nose, which I love, and a sparkling. It's just really fresh. It makes you want to drink it both when it's hot out and, like you said, for holidays. But you mentioned a couple things, and I would love your insight on this. One, you mentioned the color. I would love to know, out of those 3 varieties that this is made from, you said it's Nebbiolo, Barbera, and Sangiovese. So very like classic Italian varietals. Which one of those is adding the most color to this? Because I've had, a lot of sparkling rosés that are a little bit lighter. So I assume it's coming from one of those varieties.
Yeah, so Nebbiolo is not known for its great color. It's got okay color, but not fantastic. Sangiovese's got solid color, but the most of those 3, Barbera's definitely got the deepest, darkest color. It also typically is slightly on the riper scale of those 3 varieties as well. So yeah, the Barbera's given it that nice, wonderful kind of bright pink color that just makes this wine so attractive.
Okay, and so my other question to that is that you said that it was dry, and it's definitely dry to me, like on the palate, but on the nose, I get more of that like sweet fruit character, which I think is the perfect thing in a wine, especially sparkling. You want that like essence of sweetness, but you want it to finish dry. So is that from when you're picking the grapes, or are we doing that on purpose? Are we stopping fermentation earlier? What is the process there?
So there's a few processes involved in that. The main thing about this wine is it is picked a little bit riper, so you do get a more pure fruit characteristic. You get that cleaner, more delineated fruit. Like you can actually smell those fruits, that strawberry, that cranberry, that pomegranate, that watermelon. They actually come through pretty cleanly because we're picking it slightly higher at 20 bricks. So it's a little bit lighter. We pick it a little bit earlier than a rosé, but imagine basically it's a rosé that we turned into a sparkling wine. And then as far as the sweetness, because that acidity is so high, this wine actually, it's categorized as a brut wine, and that is technically correct. It's at the higher end of the brut scale. Because the acidity is so high, you can actually get a little bit of sugar in this. So this is actually, I think it's like 11 grams per liter or 12 grams per liter. And that's at the top level of brut. For example, extra brut is 5 grams per liter and less. Brut is 5 grams to 12 grams per liter, and then you start getting into the other categories of sparkling wine. So brut means dry in French, and that's the technical term for what it is. And because we have so much acidity, you get that mouth-watering, juicy acidity. You just need a little bit of sugar there to balance it in. That doesn't come from the fermentation. That comes from the dosage at the end of the disgorging. So you got your bottle, you've got some yeast at the bottom. We turn the bottle upside down. The yeast fall down here. We get rid of that yeast by freezing the end of the bottle. And then the bottle's a little bit down, like it's got a little bit, you know, you took a little bit out of the wine. So we're going to put a little bit more wine in there. So we just put a little bit of more sparkling wine in there with a little bit of sugar to get that right, perfect balance for our sparkling wine. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's also like a pretty unique blend, right? Like it's, you said Nebbiolo, Sangiovese, and Barbera. So what is the idea behind that? And are we copying that from anywhere? Is that like a normal sparkling or normal blend that you make, or no?
No, this is kind of more just our kind of creation. We really like these varieties. We really like them growing in the Sonoma Coast area, the Carneros and Petaluma Gap. And we just thought we could make this really fresh, really vibrant, fruit-flavored sparkling wine that would go really well in our portfolio. And we had a lot of fun making it. We have a lot of fun drinking it. And we hope you guys like drinking it too. It was kind of, Fred's probably better because he planted the vineyard, so maybe he can give us a little insight. You know, he originally planted, I mean, some of these grapes were planted in 1991 and some of them were planted in 1998. So, you know, it's a long time coming for an awesome sparkling wine.
No, and I do, Dad, want to ask you a little bit about this because it did, I think, take a lot of foresight to plant those varieties in Sonoma, especially because they're later ripening. And I know that people gave you a lot of grief when it came to like planting things like Syrah in Sonoma, and they would tell you like, oh, that's not going to ripen. It's way too late ripening, all of this stuff. So when you talk about things like Nebbiolo and Sangiovese that are kind of in that similar camp, like they take a long time to get ripe. They need a lot of sunshine. They need to develop the sugars. You know, it takes longer to develop the sugars. Like, what was your thought process in planting those varieties in this cool climate in Sonoma?
Well, it wasn't really deep thought, but it was the thought of being, trying to be something different than just Cabernet and Chardonnay, because when we started in the wine business, I would travel across the United States, and I had something called Mourvedre or Syrah or Carignan, and people just said, do you have any Chardonnay or Cabernets? That's really all that they had really been exposed to. And but I knew that in California, things were being, a lot more people were getting interested in these other varietals. So I figured by the time we were moved up to Sonoma that, you know, I should try a lot of different things and test them out in different climates, and always try to push things to their edge, because usually it's on their edge where they do the best.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. And it's obviously proved to be successful for you. And I think it's like you say, there wasn't a lot of thought going into it, but it was pretty amazing that you did that because everyone told you that you were crazy. Anyway, Tom, what do you think about wine pairing for this? To me, I'm like, you can drink this sparkling with pretty much any sort of appetizer. Like, that's just how I usually think about sparkling. It's like the beginning of the night. Drink it with any sort of like, oh, cheese charcuterie, or we have this awesome recipe on the website that's like baked scallops, so good with seafood. But I also think it's great on its own. What are your thoughts?
For me, I like to, anytime I've got friends over or anything like that, or actually anytime my wife loves sparkling. And so it's the one thing that if I want my wife to have a nice time for an evening, I always open a bottle like of this, because I will get through a glass of it and she'll drink the rest of the bottle. So it's a really good to make my wife happy. But on the other thing, we always start off the evening with it. It's great with appetizers, like you said, cheese and charcuterie. I like it with light food. I wouldn't go too crazy with heavy foods or anything like that. But it's always right at the start of my evening. Getting home from work, and I think nothing's better than a day of work and then a bottle of sparkling afterwards.
Completely agree. And you know, I forgot. I'm so sorry, you guys. I forgot to say this at the beginning, but we would love for you, you know, if you have any questions about any of the winemaking styles or what we're talking about, like, please feel free to type it into the chat. We want it to be interactive. Like, we would love to hear what you guys have to say, and especially about this wine, because it's something new that we've done in the past couple of years, and we're really kind of, trying to shift the way that Jacuzzi thinks about the winemaking with Tom and everything. So would love your feedback and would love to hear what you think about this wine. I love it. I'm really excited about this new direction that we're going. And so yeah, again, would love your feedback and what you would pair it with or what you kind of enjoy this wine with. But with that being said, feel free to type away and pour your second glass of wine. We're kind of going to move on to, oh, okay, everyone loves it. I love it. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Judith. It is super crisp, and that is one thing that I really look for in a sparkling. I want it to be refreshing, and I think you really hit the nail on the head with this one, Tom. But yeah, feel free to pour your second glass of wine. That is our Nero D'Avola. And yeah, this one's fun. Okay.
Yeah, D'Avola. So
really quick. We got a question from Keith. He said, any other sparkling wines we should try from Jacuzzi or Cline? So yes, absolutely. We have a sparkling at Cline, which is a Pinot Noir and Chardonnay blend, kind of your classic champagne style. It's made in the similar style to this, where it's method champenois, kind of that traditional style that they use in champagne. But again, more traditional because you're using the classic varieties of Pinot and Chardonnay. It's really good, kind of, fresh. It has more of that bread, like toasty character, I would say, wouldn't you, Tom? More of that toastiness. And then the other sparkling that we have is our Prosecco from Jacuzzi, which is such a treat. We actually import that from Italy. It's really a nice connection to Italy still that we have, and it's really delicious. Tom?
I really agree with you. The Jacuzzi Prosecco, it's light, it's bright, it's perfect. It reminds me of kind of like brunch and lunch wines and stuff like that. Very easygoing, approachable. It's got a little bit of sweetness in there, but still that really nice crisp acidity, crisp fruit as well. Not super complex. It really is just a wonderful, easygoing drinker that is tasty as hell. And then the Cline, that's about 75% Chardonnay, 25% Pinot Noir. It's got like those nice kind of a little bit of stone fruit, a little bit of lemon. It doesn't have kind of the brazen fruit that this Jacuzzi Rosé has, but it has a lot more of those creamy undertones. The acidity isn't as high, and it's got more richness and more breadth across it versus kind of like the Jacuzzi Rosé is like this bright bomb of acidity and bright red fruits versus the Cline's much more subdued, much more kind of rich and round, elegant wine versus this wine, which is kind of a little bit really delicious, really, full on your face.
100%. Dad, anything to add? Just popped over.
I did. I just added to my glass some of this red wine.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to move on to our second wine of the evening. Oh, this is our Nero D'Avola. It's our 2017. Really fun wine. Before I kind of jump into like my fun facts about it, I would love, Tom, for you to kind of guide us through the tasting of this wine. And
Megan's got some fun facts with us, but this is definitely our last pick of the year. Generally speaking at Jacuzzi, I think it was the second to last pick this year. It just takes forever to ripen. We grow it in Tracy Hills. It's fairly warm climate around there, and still takes a really, really long time to ripen. We crop it. It throws a fairly decent crop. We've got a fantastic grower there. He grows our Aglianico, our Nero D'Avola, our what's the other one? Our Montepulciano and our Aglianico. Did I say Aglianico?
Yeah, you did.
No, there's 4 of them. But anyway, this wine normally comes in around about 22 bricks. We're pretty happy with. So it's kind of like our light version of a Pinot Noir if you're used to your French varieties. The 18, really, really nice wine, bright fruit, rich, nice light. Not too much tannin. We're trying to get rid of that tannin. We don't want it to be too extracted because that alcohol is not there to hold it up. It's got good acidity. I was really blown away tasting it today. I got a lot of cola, which is kind of an interesting character that you do get in Pinot as well. It's got some really nice red fruits as well, but it's kind of in that lighter spectrum. It's in that strawberry and cherry characteristic. Very nice. The oaks come really nice in this wine as well. It's got that nice kind of little bit of toasty oak in the back end, and it's got a really nice finish, elegant finish. Yeah, tasting really good and
Wait.
smelling good as well.
Tom, really quick, someone said, did you say 22 racks? What does that mean? But I think you said
22 bricks. Sorry, I talked fast. I do apologize for that.
it's
22
the
bricks.
Kiwi accent. So 22 bricks, that's the level of sugar basically that we're picking it at. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it has a good weight. A 22% sugar basically is what it is. The more sugar it is, the higher the alcohol. So the lower the sugar, like our sparkling wines are picked at 20 bricks, they end up around about 12% alcohol. Things that we pick at 25 end up at about 15% alcohol, to give you an example. So this 22 bricks gives us really nice kind of fresh fruit characters, whilst also kind of keeping that nice low alcohol and giving us enough structure to build a wine around.
Yeah. No, and thank you for clarifying. And I was doing a lot of research about Nero D'Avola. One, when we were, trying to kind of redefine how we were going to make this wine, and two, just, in preparation for our talk today. And it was really interesting because, okay, this grape is normally grown in Sicily. And it's actually, when I was doing my research, people were like, this is very much between Syrah and Cabernet or Merlot. And I found that so funny because ours is, I wouldn't say it's that big bodied. Like, I think it's more on this like new California wine trend where it is lighter alcohol. Like you said, what it is, like 12.5%,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, it's 12.5%.
12.5%. Yeah, so it's 12.5%. I think the tannin, it has a nice tannin structure, but it's not overwhelming. And I would say maybe the closest thing to that comparison would be the flavor profile. So I do like the cola situation. I get some of that for sure, but a lot of that plum, kind of juicy plum, and the strawberry, like maybe could be more Merlot-y, but to me it is more Pinot-like in our expression of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really interesting because in Italy, throughout my research, they were using it a lot as a blending grape because of the dark color. But even the color for me it's not super dark. It's not, it's definitely darker than a Pinot. It has more concentration. It has more of that opaqueness for sure. But I wouldn't call it like Syrah Cabernet dark. So I thought it was so interesting, this difference between the old world and our new world style. And my slide for this isn't that interesting. It was just me like kind of geeking out about like, oh my God, how weird that in Italy it's this dark blending grape, and here the way that we make it, it's really Pinot-like. It's really beautiful, kind of that delicate, really nice flavors.
A floral character to it as well. It's almost got like a rose water or something like that on the nose as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It has that floralness. I thought what was interesting is that recently in Sicily, it has had a resurgence. There's these people who are really embracing this variety and kind of claiming it as their own in Sicily. So producers like Kos and Donna Fugata, who are really making this as a varietal on its own instead of blending it away. And they say Nero means black in Italian, so they were using this, like I said, as a blending grape to add color and everything to two different blends in Italy. But again, I'm so surprised by that. I thought it was such an interesting point to see that difference in my research and what we see in Italy versus what we're doing in the US.
I mean, it might be because Sicily is really hot, obviously, because it's down at the bottom of Italy. However, it's really, really controlled. The temperatures are controlled because it's an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. So you get hot days, but you also get really cold nights.
Mhm.
Since their growing season, we grow it in the Central Valley, and so it's just you get just really, really hot there. So I don't know too much. It would seem like we would have the hotter climate where we are.
Right.
But with a hotter climate, you'd expect it to be darker and more intense. And we're definitely doing the opposite of what they're doing there. So, Fred, do you have any opinion? About Nero D'Avola. And we make
Not
it.
really. I'm not tasting it. I'm still tasting the Valeriano, 15-year-old Valeriano. That's incredible. So I'm getting kind of lost in it.
He's going rogue. It's totally fine.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I think it is really just an interesting observation. I feel like that we made, that there is this difference, even especially because we're growing it in this warmer California climate. So I definitely think it's kind of a weird change from what you would typically find, but I also do think that there's different styles that you find in Italy. So you do find that lighter style, that a little bit more earthy interpretation of Nero D'Avola, and then again that bigger, more fruit presenting interpretation. So I think that's the great thing about wine as well. It can be kind of transformed into anything, but this really is shows off the terroir where we grow it. And, it takes so long to ripen that we can't even get it above 12.5% alcohol.
Yeah, we picked this end of October. And we've planted a little bit of Nero D'Avola at the Jacuzzi Winery. So that'll be, hopefully in a few years, we'll be able to get it right. Yeah.
I hope so.
So I really enjoyed drinking this. It's nice and light. I would love this with pizza. Pizza with light red pastas. It just goes really well with that acidity and that tannin with tomato sauce of any type.
Yeah, pizza for sure. And I feel like I do say this on every single one. I feel like I have mentioned pizza in every single one of our Zoom tastings, because I think I eat a lot of it. Maybe I shouldn't eat so much pizza, but
there's nothing wrong with pizza.
I think it would do really well. And again, it's that bright red, crunchy fruit. It's that red fruit character that comes through with kind of that hint of secondary characteristics that would do really well with anything tomato based.
What about a Korean grilled?
Yes, actually, thank you, Tom. We do have some fun recipes for each of these wines up on our website. So we have this paired with Korean grilled steak with like a sesame chimichurri, and I think that does really well. Also,
That sounds amazing, actually.
I know, right? I'm getting hungry. Would love to hear your thoughts on this wine also. So yeah, feel free to write in the chat. And if
have you guys tried any other Nero D'Avolas as well? Because I know it's a really strange variety. Not many people get to drink it. So I just want to hear your thoughts and what you think about it, and your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tom, have you had any new world?
Megan, I have to interrupt because I'm here with my one and only grandchild right now. This is Miles.
Miles.
And, I'm going to have to sign out though. So
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Miles says goodbye too. Say goodbye, Miles.
Miles.
6 months. So anyway, thanks.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Okay, wait, we did get a question, Tom, and Keith asked, we had this in years past, what is special about the 2017? So I think it'd be great to talk about 2017 as a vintage, what made it special, especially in Tracy Hills.
So 2017, the special thing about the vintage in that year was it was hot. Arguably, apart from 2020, the hottest vintage we've seen actually. Really, really massive heat spikes, good, consistent warm weather throughout the season. And so this is, I mean, sounds crazy to seeing we're talking about like the blackness of Nero D'Avola, but this is one of the ripest Nero D'Avolas we have, which kind of leans into that kind of, you've got a big plethora of fruit. We've got things from like those lighter fruit characters into some of those darker fruit characters like plum to strawberry and whatnot. And I just think that this is pretty much as ripe as we get this variety. So this is like the ripest we're gonna get this wine from this area, which is pretty cool. It's got none of those green characters or anything like that. The tannins are solidified, so you don't have over the top tannins. It's balanced with the acidity, and you've just got a really nice balanced wine that's really easy drinking. It's got solid concentration. If you've got a colder year, what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with less of that fruit character. You might end up with some greenness in there, like some dried herbs and some bell peppers and stuff like that. You also might end up with like a less concentrated wine. I think this wine's nicely concentrated. It's nicely balanced. It's got a really nice array of fruits. And apart from 2020, which is the next vintage. Yeah, I think the 2020 is the next wine we're going to make. I can't remember. No, we've got a 2019 we're putting into bottle soon. 2019 was not as warm as this. So I'd be interested to try these side by side soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so I am curious, Tom, have you had any New World Nero D'Avola?
Did we find any for that? We sat down because we tasted all these wines and we found that. I can't remember if we found a New World Nero D'Avola. I think there's some guy making it up in like Dry Creek Valley.
Yes. And, I think like Martha Steuben has possibly a Nero D'Avola, very like natural wine driven, which is amazing. But yeah, it's all made in really, really small quantities. And this is no exception. It's, really hard. And shout out to all of the growers who are still growing these varieties that are so hard to find and not really popular in the like mainstream wine drinking world. I think that's really cool.
And thanks to you guys for enjoying them and loving them with us. So yeah, thank you for the support.
Okay, with that, let's move to our third wine, which is our Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you haven't, please pour yourself a glass. I already have. And Tom, I would love to, we all know Cabernet, it's kind of your classic noble variety. It's grown everywhere. It's really, really popular. But I would love your take on the Jacuzzi Cab and the winemaking style for this particular vintage. This is the 2017. Talk a little bit about the vineyards and the wine and what you get out of this.
Sure, yeah. So 2017, like I was talking about before, really, really hot vintage. This is grown out in Contra Costa. We work with our amazing man out there, Alan Lucchese. These vineyards aren't the oldest out there. Some of the vineyards out there are 120 years old, as Fred was talking about before. His grandfather was planting them. And this one is more newer as the newer varieties came around and whatnot. So these vineyards are anywhere from 20 to 40 years old. We picked this kind of early October. You think about, that's about a week to 2 weeks earlier than Napa. So what you're getting is you're getting a riper style of Cabernet Sauvignon. You're getting this tannin. You're not getting quite the concentration, quite the depth that you're getting from Napa and Sonoma, but you are getting richness and roundness and really nice kind of tannin balanced with acidity. What that means is you've got beautiful Cabernet fruit on the nose. It's got beautiful, I love the aroma on this wine is stunning right now. But what really kind of makes this wine stand apart, it's a lot richer, rounder, and smoother than its counterparts to the north and the other areas. Very, very detailed, very deep. It's got really nice spice flavors as well. We put some really nice oak that complements this wine, some French medium plus mix that we put on this wine. Gives it really nice chocolate, mocha, vanilla characteristics in there too. Just a really, really gorgeous wine. This is all head trained. It's all own rooted. It's all dry farmed as well. So we're really kind of hands off in the growing of this. It's beautiful out there in Contra Costa with a lot of heat and sandy soils. So you get reflected heat to really nicely ripen the Cabernet Sauvignon, but also it's on the Delta. So you get a lot of the influence from the San Francisco Bay, the San Pablo Bay. You get some of those cooling winds coming through. I really like drinking this. This is one of my favorite cabs to drink just because it's so accessible. Goes with a bunch of foods as well. Got all that fruit in there, but the tannins just don't claw my mouth apart. And I really, really like that. It's just such an easy drinking cab.
I completely agree. And to me, it kind of has this like candied strawberry, but it's still dry and really plush tannin. I love this wine, but it is really interesting because as we're kind of like morphing Jacuzzi into more of a, you know, dedication to this Italian heritage, we're kind of moving away from these classic California varieties, things like Cabernet. And, you know, for those of you who have known Jacuzzi, we used to make Pinot Noir, we used to make Chardonnay, we used to make Merlot. And we're kind of like moving away from those classic California wines to make more of these Italian unique varieties. So this is actually the last vintage that we're making of this Cabernet Sauvignon, which, you know, I think is a shame, but it's also great because a lot of this fruit is going to the Cline Cabernet, which seems really more fitting because Cline kind of encompasses Rhone, French style winemaking, and that true California. No, Robert, we're not making Pinot anymore.
It was kind of a chance for us to really focus on our Italian varietals. So, you know, in the last few, we're doing Megan and Hillary have kind of taken over a little bit, and it's been a lot of fun to do this as well. So we're sitting down and going, what does Jacuzzi represent to us? And Jacuzzi to the family and to us is the Italian heritage. So it's a really fun opportunity to focus on our Italian varietals and kind of really dial them in, you know, really focus on them, make sure we're making the best wines we possibly can, and just kind of having really a lot of fun with them too, because we've got some new exciting varieties we're going to try out with you guys soon. We've got some new blends, we've got some new versions of our wines. So we've got a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline, which is really fun and exciting as a winemaker. And it was just kind of, I don't know, just we felt that Cabernet, even though I love this, trust me, this is one of my favorite wines, especially when people come to Jacuzzi. I'm like, always, you love the Cabernet. You know, but it was just kind of one of those, yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think it was definitely a hard decision because, like you said, it's such a good wine, and it like hits all the marks for me for like delicious Cabernet, where it's approachable, but it's still really food friendly, and all of that. But yeah, I think our focus is really on like, who are these farmers that are preserving these cool, unique, weird Italian varieties that we love so much, that we want to make sure are like still a part of California's history 10, 20, 50 years from now. And I have no doubt that Cabernet is going to be here forever. But things like Nero D'Avola or Terrell de Go, maybe not so much unless we put all of our efforts into that. But anyway, with that being said, sorry, that was kind of a sidetrack about this wine, because I think this wine is amazing. Oh, look, someone, yes, I know. La Dolce Vina, it was such a good wine. It was a really great blend of a bunch of little wines. We stopped making it. It was a little bit on the sweeter side, and it was kind of a similar situation where we were really like, what are we trying to focus on? What do we want to do really well? And it ended up being one of those wines that we stopped making. But yeah, I know, it's such a bummer. Everyone really loved that wine. Come on. And then Keith said, we want to order more of the cab. How long would we be able to store it? And I do think that you're going to be able to lay this wine down for a really long time, 10 plus years for sure.
Yeah, it's got that acidity. The tannins are smooth and elegant. They'll turn into richer and sweeter tannins over the long run. Yeah, no, it's really, the cab's really awesome. But on the plus, what the other side of it is, it's not like we're making, the Cline family stopping to making these wines. These wines are just going across the street to Cline.
Yeah.
You know, and we wanted to kind of make a dedicated Italian spot where we really love making Italian wines and we've making a lot of the wines in the winery right beside me as well. We did our first Zoom meeting. I was sitting in the winery. We would be in the winery today, but it's packed. There's no room in there, unfortunately. Because it's full of amphoras. It's full of everything making wine. We just pressed our last wine over here today, which is good. You know, so that's the 4th of November, the earliest ever, but we just pressed our last grapes over here at Jacuzzi, just right there beside me. Today, and that's kind of the Terrell de Go is the last thing. It'll be pressed next week. So that kind of will wrap our 2020 harvest for us. just sad. It's been quick and sharp and all the rest of it. But it was just kind of an opportunity for us to focus on our Italian roots and our Italian heritage, and leave Cline to making kind of the big stuff, if you will.
Right. Well, okay. So really quickly, we had Judith, hi Judith, ask about can we talk about Primitivo? They said they love that wine, and absolutely. Last Zoom tasting, we did a whole deep dive into Primitivo versus Zinfandel, and what the differences between those two. They're really closely related. I think our Primitivo does a really good job of offering up a lot of that fruit. It's similar to a Zinfandel, so it still offers that strawberry, that plum, with a little bit of that like underlying spice, which is classic for Zinfandel, and also for Primitivo. But the Primitivo also offers a little bit more of that like dusty character, so it's a little bit more rustic. Wouldn't you say that, Tom?
Definitely, yeah. It's got our Primitivo is gorgeous. It's got a little more depth, a little more complexity. The Primitivo and Zinfandel are pretty much the same, but they have slight clonal differences. So Primitivo generally has looser clusters, and they have smaller berries, which gives you thicker skins as well. So we get a little more flavor and concentration out of Primitivo, which just gives us that little kind of edge over Zinfandels, and just makes it a little more detailed, a little more fruit forward, and a little more fun to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Cab was our final wine for this tasting. Again, like any questions, type them into the chat. We'll definitely answer them, pose them to Tom and I. But I do want to touch on this again, and we've like briefly talked about it, but the 2020 harvest, and we talked about this last time, it's finally over. It was quick, but it was also super challenging. We faced a lot of challenges, everything from fires, obviously, to the COVID restrictions, and how are we going to keep everyone safe. And that was such a challenge. And then we're done with harvest. So what's next in the vineyard? What's next for the winemaking process? What's going on in the cellar?
So just because harvest is done doesn't mean it's done. So what the deal is, you bring grapes in, you ferment them. Reds go through 2 fermentation cycles, whites generally 1 fermentation cycle. And so we're still waiting all of our wines to finish those fermentation cycles. So we pressed off our last reds today, generally speaking. We've got the Terrotago left to go. The Aeneas just went dry a couple of days ago. That's going to get wrecked in sulfur next week. There's lots going on. It's really busy. You work really hard during the harvest period to make sure that everything goes smoothly. But the problem is not all things go smoothly. So you spend the next couple of months trying to make sure that fixing those things that you might have missed or might have mistaken or whatnot. And generally everything at Jacuzzi has gone really, really well. I'm really, really happy with how everything tastes, how everything looks, and the future for them all. We tasted the Malvasia, but sorry, maybe I'm not supposed to give this away. We got a new wine we just tasted last week, which was really delicious, that we're going to be bottling in the next couple of months, if not the next month, I think it is. We'll be tasting things like the 2020 Aeneas and the Vinacha in the next few weeks to taste and see how they go. They're tasting fantastic when I've tasted them with the winemaking team. And no, it's just kind of basically trying to button up all the loose ends so that we can enjoy Christmas and the New Year's. It takes normally basically up till Christmas to get everything to where we want it to be. So like for the reds, for example, we sulfur them and put them in the barrels for the next year and whatnot, and we don't need to worry about them as much. The white wines ferment, and then we've got to rack them and make sure they're nice and clean and sulfur them, put them into either tanks or barrels, depending on how we want to age them. So we're just kind of in that process of having picked all the grapes, we're finishing all the ferments, and we're just getting them to put them to sleep basically for winter. And so that we can either bottle them immediately or we can worry about them next year. So that's kind of the process. And then in the vineyards, it's still kind of warm here. I'm in a sweatshirt. I don't necessarily need to be in a sweatshirt. Megan, I'm probably sure you feel the same way. It's like mid-70s out here. And it's cold in the morning. We're talking it gets down to like 38, 39 degrees in the morning. But until it gets really cold, the leaves don't come off the vines. And so we're basically waiting until the leaves fall off the vines so then we can start pruning. Once the leaves fall off, we can get pruning going, the sheep and the goats get back out in the vineyards, and we can do all of that. But in the meantime, as you guys may or may not know, the olive press here is at Jacuzzi Winery. So all the vineyard crews are out picking olives. And until they finish picking olives, then they'll start in the vineyards. And hopefully by then all the leaves have fallen off and we can start pruning. I'm looking forward to the 2021 season. Well, like everyone's looking forward to 2021.
We all are. Yeah.
I don't think it, but I mean, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so 2021, we had a really, really early harvest, which means that the vines weren't trying to ripen fruit for a long time whilst they still had leaves. So that means that they're gonna have a lot of energy when they want to bud burst in 2021. So the other side of it is I'm expecting quite an early bud burst in 2021. I'm expecting the vines to have a lot of energy. I'm hoping that they're gonna throw us a good crop. But that's all hope because, well, geez, who knows what Mother Nature's going to throw at us. So that's kind of my hopes and dreams. But yeah.
But I think that's such like the anthem of being in the wine industry. It's like we are so subjected to whatever Mother Nature wants to throw at us. And people think it's so romantic. And sometimes it is. It's such like a romanticized profession. But yeah, sometimes we're like, when it comes down to it, we are farmers. We are just like waiting and hoping to see what the weather throws at us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, Mother Nature has her way with us more than we have our way with Mother Nature, to put it that way.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so we got another question from Jessica that said, how often do you do these tastings? This was my first one. And we have been trying to do them every month. We don't have one set for December yet. But once we do, we'll be sure to send it out to all of you. And we have a great time, 100% doing these. It's really nice to connect. Like I said, when we first started virtually, because I think, before 2020, this wasn't something we did. We didn't get to connect with people from New York or Rhode Island or Florida or whatever. So it's actually a silver lining of this year. To be able to talk to all of you and see you all. So
I want to ask, so we changed the time. Did that work for people, or was it good or bad or whatnot? Because we changed with daylight savings and stuff like that, changed the time of this meeting. Did you guys like that change, or did it work? I mean, it worked for you guys, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. Great.
Denver works.
Oh, okay. Jessica, I was just in Denver and I love it there. It was my first time visiting and it was so great. My best friend just moved there, so love it. Anyone else happy? Oh, Texas, perfect. Okay, yeah, I feel like it is really good timing because we're definitely later on the West Coast, so I'm sure that it was harder when we were starting at 5. So good. All right. Wonderful. So that's our last wine. Please, send any questions. Ooh, Chicago. See, this is so great. We're all over the place. This is so wonderful. Yeah, anyway, send any last questions. We're here. We're drinking. And if there's no more questions, again, thank you all so much for being here.
What was your favorite wines? Which wine did you like out of the 3? If you tasted them all, or
Yes, good question, Tom. Cab, yeah. Ooh, Nero. I love it. Yeah, we're across the board. I love it. And I think that's the great thing about what we do at Jacuzzi is that we make so many different wines and there's something for everyone.
And this is a nice balance because you've got your fresh white, you've got your kind of lighter red, and then you got your heavy red at the end, which is pretty awesome. So it's nice to kind of have those. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Thanks, Patricia, Jessica, Judith, Robert, you guys, Keith, all for participating. We love it. This definitely made my week. And hopefully see you next month. And we'll send out a recording of this tasting and an invite for next month. And thank you all so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers.
Good night. Bye-bye.